So you didn't think we'd forget about lemon drop, did you? So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys what it takes to strip a car down, getting it ready for paint, and to address rust issues in certain places. Now this car looked really good when it was all together. You might have seen in the other videos. And things always, they look better on camera. And my last video of the 86 GT that I bought, people are calling me crazy for wanting to strip the car because they're like, oh, that car's way too nice. Well, there's a threshold of what's way too nice versus what's just good for parts. Now, here behind me, you can see everything from this car. It's amazing how much space a car can take up when it's all stripped apart. Now, this isn't even including the motor or transmission that we took out last summer. Here you can see everything: doors, taillights, trunk lid, got the carpet underneath the trunk lid, and front bumper cover, fenders, all the trim and interior. I even pulled out the whole top frame and assembly all as one piece, and you guys will be able to see a lot of this stuff, how it came out. I'm not going to bore you guys with some of the normal little trim things here and there, but we'll go through and I'll show you guys, you know, what it takes ultimately to pull the doors off, get all the window trim off, you know, these hockey sticks. There's some tricky nuts and bolts in places that can make your life a little difficult if you don't know what you're looking for, the exact nuts and bolts that are required to get the whole top frame assembly out. And that's pretty much it, guys. Well, here we are. We got lemon dropped in the background. Gonna try and push it. Dale has his reservations about moving it in the snow.
Well, I'm gonna go get the snow brush and the hard shovel.
Oh, it'll roll. So, a lot of you guys have been asking, what about lemon dropped? What about lemon dropped? I've been peeling parts off this thing and treating it like a poor old parts car, but now's the time. Gonna get it inside, finish stripping everything down that needs to be stripped. You know, I've managed to keep all the seals and everything else so that although it's been sitting outside, it has at least been sealed up to keep the elements and maybe any rodents or anything else out of it. So most of the interior is just sitting in there loosely. To be able to pull all that out, we're going to pull the trim off, going to pull the lights, pull the bumpers, and the goal is to be able to build a contraption, maybe do a rotisserie setup like Notorious did with his shell, because we need to sandblast the underside of this car, which means the diff's going to come out and any remaining suspension, and that'll allow us to get everything clean and rust free.
Here's your weapon.
My weapon. We don't care about this paint, so we're good.
I just want to get the speed bump.
That's what it is, though. It's acting as a brake.
Yeah, well, look at this side. It's cambered back in, too.
So there we go, guys. Managed to get the car indoors. That struggle is real. The problem is there is pretty much no suspension left in this car. There's no springs, there's no shocks on the back, so the diff is just sitting in there on control arms, most likely on the bump stop. And in the front, there are struts, but no springs. I got like a piece of 2x4 on each side where the coil spring would go, and that's part of the problem. I think the wood shifted out of where I had it, and that camber is making the top side of the tire rub on the strut, so that's what was making it so hard to push. We got the car warmed up, all the snow is melted off, and now it is time to get this thing stripped down as much as possible so we can get all of the corrosion spots addressed and really get focused on this project and give it the attention that I've been trying to get to it for a while. So Foxtoberfest 2021, I got lots of time, so there's no excuses to get this thing done for it. So gonna go ahead, get this front bumper cover off, I've already gone ahead and loosened off a lot of the little nuts that are behind inside the inner fender areas down here. Amazingly enough, they all came off except for one. So I only broke this one guy off, but that's pretty good considering the age of the car and the fact it's a Canadian car and that there's a little bit of rust in here, but I'm not going to complain. So pull that guy off. The fenders are probably going to end up coming off because I just want to make sure that I can see everything from the backside and underneath and make sure that we address any potential rust that there is. For instance, you can even see, if you look really closely on the underside of the windshield in the cowling area here, there's a little bit of surface rust in there, so definitely have to make sure that that gets blasted. Already gone ahead and lifted up these trim pieces. Things look pretty clean down in here, but need to blow out these leaves and all this other dirt and debris. And if we have to pull this glass out, we will. So with that, we're going to go ahead. We'll make sure that all this trim comes off. I've already pulled off this door trim here. And this is a really common problem for any northern Mustang. A lot of rust ends up bubbling up in the metal trim part that's underneath this rubber and makes things look pretty bad. The good news is that you can buy these aftermarket, so just drill out these little rivets here and be able to get these guys replaced. We'll make sure we get the door locks, the door handles, everything's going to come off because I will be putting in Jaguar F-type door handles into this car. I will be putting in Jaguar F-type door handles into this car. So we're going to go ahead now, start pulling more and more stuff off. All right, so the front bumper cover is off and the front fenders are off. And you guys are probably wondering, why am I going to go ahead and cut up or modify a 93 limited edition or special feature car? Well, the reason being is that once you see some of the corrosion in the areas here, could you save it and restore it back to all originality? Yes, you could, but these cars, although they are a special edition and they might be rare and someone would argue that they could be sought after, there's rare and desirable, and then there's rare because not everybody necessarily wants them, and not everybody wants a yellow Mustang or a yellow car for that matter. And the reality is you can pick one of these cars up for a pretty good price still. So that's why I'm not afraid to, number one, save the car, number two, modify it and make it the way that I want, because I'm gonna have to go into some pretty big detail here. So now, if we're looking at the front fenders, and this is what I wanted to look at, was kind of the bottoms here and what's underneath these front fender extensions, just to see how much rust is down here. And there's really not too much. They generally look pretty good here. It's more just kind of around those bolts. And the reality is I'm going to be putting a detch kit on this car anyways, so the detch kit's going to be covering anything, but we just want to make sure that we control any corrosion and that no more rust comes through. So the front fenders look to be in really good shape overall, so that's good. Now let's get to the bad stuff. If we look here in the door hinge area, a little bit of corrosion, nothing too bad actually, mostly just surface. But we want to get in all these little nooks and crannies and make sure that this all gets cleaned up. But here is the area of concern. Take a look at this. So this is pretty punky here. All this is going to have to get cut out and welded up. So there's a lot to do here. And then we got areas up in here, where the factory didn't get a lot of paint coverage. So all this will get blasted and cleaned up. You can see there's a lot of undercoating sprayed in the strut tower area down here. So this, we'll have to see what happens. The engine bay, well, you guys have already seen that. We know that there's some frame rail slash strut tower work on this driver's side. So you can see right through there. Got a rock or something wedged there. Same thing down here. We're pretty scabby, so there's a hole. This is the cruise control unit, so this I can get unbolted. I'm not going to worry about cruise control on this car, so I'll probably just unbolt this and it'll stay out. So we want to make sure we have a nice clean engine bay on this one. And we can see there's a little bit of swelling in here underneath this hinge. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully that answers the question of why am I going to modify and make this car not original or restore it back to the way it should be. So for now, going to go ahead, continue on stripping more stuff down and getting ready for this thing to see some body and paint. So in terms of the convertibles, to get this weather stripping off, it's actually kind of pressure fit in there. So whatever type of tool that you have, that you can just kind of get in. And you can see there where the ridge is. Usually, Christmas tree right there. Just pull slowly. Alright guys, so the dash is out, got the top down, started taking the window trim and everything else off. So now the next step is I'm actually going to pull the doors right off this car. It's important so we can get access into these door jamb areas so we can sandblast and get a lot of that corrosion and everything else cleaned up in these areas around the door hinges here and where the antenna cable comes out. A lot of this, a lot of surface, it's not too bad. You know, down here, this is exposed a little bit more now, so this will be a cut and weld up job. But everything else is looking pretty decent. You know, I was expecting that there would be some rust in some areas, but it's nothing too bad. And further inspection down along here in the windshield area, it's a little crusty here, so I'll be sure to remove this wire and get up in there and make sure that everything gets cleaned up accordingly. So right now, going to disconnect the wire connectors in the down in this area here so that I can pull the wiring through for all of the power accessories that are going into the door. So we have, you know, our power lock and window cable here, and then there'll be the mirrors look like they're already disconnected, and then this is the one for the speakers. So just get this guy unhooked. All right, so a little lesson here for these rear plastics in case you guys have not taken these out before. And for any of you guys who have a black convertible interior, these rear plastics are probably just about the rarest and to a certain degree the most desirable Foxbody black interior part. And a lot of people think that you can just go ahead and bolt these in an earlier year Fox, and you can, but you actually need to change the way that the seatbelt mechanism is. So you'd actually have to get belts, and all of the retractor system bolts down here on the floorboard, as opposed to the pre-90 cars where the retractors were behind the backside of these plastics, plus the belt location changed a little bit as well. Rear belts as well, there's shoulder belts in the rear versus the lap belts that were in pre-90. So getting to these plastic, unfortunately, these covers here are always breaking and always come off. You can see there's a small screw hole here, and that is someone drilled that in to keep this trim piece on. and not a bad idea. Some people glue them. There's lots of ways. Sometimes they just end up off and broken and missing, so the rear plastics end up looking like that. So once you've got your retractor part unbolted from the bottom here, you can easily slide the belt out through the little slit in this trim piece like that, and you have to take these 2 screws out, and that'll allow you to pass the belt through the rear plastic. So that way you can actually remove the rear plastic, especially for a project like this when we're pretty much stripping everything apart and don't want overspray, don't want sandblasting dust, don't want, you know, something accidentally hitting these plastics and potentially breaking them, because they are very brittle. It's this is probably one of the most brittle parts in terms of interior that Ford ever made, and these ones are actually in pretty good shape overall. You see me wrestling this belt as I'm trying to do everything with one hand here. So got our upgraded Pioneer speaker in here. Go ahead and take those connections off, and you can actually see that this plastic has been repaired with an excessive amount of hot glue. So not sure what that's about, but looks good on this side, which is good. I bet you the plastic behind the vinyl cracked at some point. You know, for how flimsy these things are, it's surprising that they expect you to be able to snap your convertible boot cover to them. So yeah, these guys are a bit of a pain, and to add insult to injury here, we're actually going to be drilling holes in them because I'm going to be running a light bar in this car. So if I can actually find a set in another color, or maybe a set that have already been drilled for a light bar, or maybe you guys have a set that maybe you want to trade, although shipping these things is a pain in the ass. But yeah, I am going light bar in this car, which means I'm gonna have to drill out a hole in this area, and well, we'll see what happens. If you guys got something, want to trade, or you have an extra set of these plastics, let me know, because I might buy them. All right, so got everything out of the interior, and one thing that I did is I went ahead and actually vacuumed the carpet. Number of reasons. Number one, looks better. Number two, when you clean stuff, it really gives you a perspective on the overall condition of things. And I like nothing more than being able to retain and use a factory carpet, especially in a Foxbody. The aftermarket ones just, I don't know, they don't do it for me. And in this case, this carpet is in really, really nice shape. Shampoo is going to go a long way with this thing, and it's going to look brand new again. So like I said, I removed everything, the old amplifier underneath the passenger seat, managed to get all the seat belt buckles and retractors unbolted without breaking anything. I'm going to go ahead and lift up the carpet. I haven't even peeked under here, so it's going to be interesting to see, because being a convertible, seals aren't always 100% in these guys, and you never know if a heater core leaked or any of those things, or how much moisture was in the car, and what kind of condition the floor pans are in. So let's lift this up and see what we're working with. Still have all the sound deadener and insulation under here. See some old change. Let's pull our wiring through here. So upon first inspection, we got a little bit of rust in this rear floor pan here, but we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. There we have it. The carpet is out. Got a little bit of surface rust on that passenger side floor pan back there. Definitely can clean that up. I think it's going to be okay. In the front side, there's actually the sound deadening material that's still stuck on down there, so might have to do a little bit of investigation. Everything looks pretty solid, but when the car is up in the air, I am Gonna make sure, just double check if there's any rust on the bottom side in this area, then this stuff is probably gonna have to come off, because it'll mean that there's potentially moisture in there and potentially some rust, which we don't want. Other area of concern potentially is down in here, the bottom side of this rocker panel, because I do know there's corrosion here. There's a little bit on the bottom side of this rocker. One cool thing that, not sure if any of you picked up, but if you look in the back corner there, there's a piece of paper taped to the back of the car. That's actually the build sheet, which is a super cool feature. So you can see the emission, engine code, air conditioning, the color, defrost, windshield radio, speakers, all of those things, and the rotation number, and of course the VIN. Now it is pretty much pop riveted behind the bracket here for some of the rear top assembly, but definitely just be keeping this here. Even I might tape it down or something, try and put like a protective cover on it almost. Like an industrial packing tape or something, and just kind of preserve it and keep it in there. It's kind of a neat thing to have. So one other thing that I noticed was the main tag here for the car has started to peel back, and I saw a little bit of rust back here with a crack, and there's actually a crack up here as well. So to me, this indicates a little bit of stress on the metal around the striker area, so probably from the convertible door opening and closing and just kind of fatiguing the metal a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to heat up the sticker. I'm going to try and get it off, so that way I can make sure that this area gets repaired, and then after that we'll stick it back on after. So just going to use a heat gun, take my time, slowly peel it back, and hopefully get this thing off in one piece. All right, so here we go. I got the sticker off. It looks a little worse than it is, and that's not to worry. Got 99% of it. There's just a little bit that held back here, and the good news is that all the printing is actually on the clear part of the sticker. What that means is that if we put this sticker on something white on the background, it's actually gonna look just fine. So for comparison's sake, I'm gonna put the sticker up against this blue post, and you can see that the sticker looks pretty bad because you can see through and it looks blue and it looks like it's all ripped apart. Well, put it up against this white paint, boom, the sticker looks just fine. So the trick is gonna be to put a white surface behind this. So whether I use a white sticker or something else, might be able to even just put some paint on the back side of this. And what I'll do is I'll cut all of the border off around it after, and then get a really good tape, and we'll make sure that this gets glued and stuck back on the way that it should be later. So many times I see those stickers get painted over, or I've seen people drill through them so that they can put undercoating inside, which I don't get it. But to me, it's those little things, you know, like every little VIN sticker on all the panels of the car, those are all going to be getting masked off, so that, you know, you're going to know that all of the panels on this car match, and all of those VIN numbers are there, and you can see them and validate that no body panels have ever been changed on the car, and that they're all true to the car and its originality. And that helps with having that build sheet sitting in the back as well. So it all adds to the story that you are creating when you build a car, and that story at the end of the day can help sell the car. And you know, people like documentation and are willing to pay for a car that's documented better than others. The top has been replaced on this car, and it's actually the wrong style top. It has the seam that goes across the back along the top side of the rear window, which 93s didn't. They were supposed to look seamless. So although the top's in good shape, that does annoy me. So that'll be something. Probably actually want to put a nice soft canvas style top instead of the vinyl on this when it's all done anyways. So there we go, that's ripped out. Now I am going to focus on getting the hockey sticks off without breaking them. They're pretty tricky. There's a couple bolts hiding on the underside here, so I'm going to have to put 12 volts to these rear window motors, get them down. And one good way of accessing those bolts is up and through here. So I'll probably have to drill off these pop rivets and remove these rubbers and then be able to get those. These bolts are actually hiding on the underside here. And what they do is they actually put it's almost like a sealant rubber. Let's see if I can pick some off with my nail here. It's actually a big chunk of it. So this is what they use. There we go. So that pretty much seals up the hole and then gives you access to the nut. I believe it's 8mm hiney nut under there. And so we get all this trim off, which is important. We'll get the tail lights off. And this thing is pretty much going to be stripped. Alright, so to get this rear top frame out, you gotta take out this rear window, which means you take the few screws out that hold this vinyl tray in. So once you can get those screws out in the corners, push that tray down, then you'll have access to all these nuts that go across the back. Once you get those out, then you can finish unstrapping your rear window. Once the rear window is out, then we'll take the bolts or the nuts out along these side panels of the top in these corners, along with these 4 bolts here, 4 bolts here, and the 1 bolt that holds on the main hydraulic arm. And once you take all that out, you can actually lift the whole top assembly with all the hydraulics connected and just take the pump right out of the housing. It just kind of sits in there on some rubber mounts, so it's not too difficult to pry out a place, and we'll lift everything out. Oh yeah. There you have it, guys. Car is stripped. How much time did this take to strip it down? So not including the engine and transmission removal. This is just pulling all the trim and all the interior, everything that you see. This took me about a day's work. And you know, you could probably strip it faster if you didn't care, but we want to make sure that we're not breaking things and that we're being organized. You can see down on the floor there, I got all my Ziploc bags bagged and tagged for all the nuts and bolts, separated by different areas, whether it's top assembly nuts and bolts, interior stuff, trim stuff, so on and so forth. And managed to get the hockey sticks off without breaking anything here. I need to find some new seals, but everything came off reasonably well. I only snapped 2 bolts out of everything that I had to remove to get all of this out, which is pretty good, especially considering there's a little bit of rust on the car. There's a few little things, the hood hinges. Again, those little C-clip style bolt things, the same thing where that shifter linkage was when I was trying to get that out for the 4-to-8 conversion car. Those things are just spinning around, so I need to get my hand in the back side of the cowl. A little bit of an update for you guys as well. You might be wondering, whatever happened to the Dutch number 5 car? Well, COVID sort of happened and interrupted a lot of the momentum and the flow that my painter Boogie had, but he sent me some pictures the other day and there's some pretty good progress being made. So I'm hoping to get up there next week, and that should actually make for an overall update video, so stay tuned for that. And just with the weather and everything else, another project that I have has been delayed for its pickup as well, so hopefully that works out. I haven't seen the car in person, fully intend to see it, buy it, bring it, and that'll be a car that gets flipped, so stay tuned for that one. Thank you again for following along, subscribing, doing all of those things. If you aren't subscribed, please do. Please share my videos with anybody you think might be interested in my Foxbody content and the projects that I'm working on. And again, I'm sorry if I missed some steps or skipped over some stuff when I was tearing this car apart. You know, my focus is trying to give you guys an overall of what's going on instead of, you know, you guys sitting there watching for 8 hours straight of me taking out every single little nut and bolt. There's lots of other videos and stuff on there out there for you guys, but if you do have any questions, by all means, drop them in the comments, fire me an email, send me a DM on Instagram, any of those things, and I always do my best to respond. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.